Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you all to today's webinar, Looking for a Home Within a Home, the Barn Swallows in the Himalayas. Today, we have the privilege of hosting Amarjeet Kaur, a brilliant scientist from the Wildlife Institute of India. Amarjeet specializes in avian ecology, which is the study of birds and their environments. Her research explores migration ecology, population genetics, and community participation in science. For her PhD, she's been focusing on barn swallows in the Himalayas, exploring their nesting habits and their unique relationship with humans. She's also worked on satellite tracking and conservation projects involving Amur falcons in Nagaland and Manipur. So let's jump right into this fascinating topic. Amarjeet, a very warm welcome to Hindustan Times.
Thank you so much, Vikram. Thank you for hosting me. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yeah. So could you share a bit about avian ecology? What is it and why it's important?
Yeah, so avian ecology, as the name itself suggests, avian is like all about birds and their ecology, how
Yeah.
they occur in the environment, how we see them, how are their patterns, how do they like distribute, how are they distributed across the globe, and you can have it like global scale, regional scale, local scale, and you can like it's all about studying their occurrence, distribution, behavior, and everything. It involves everything. Ecology is like a big subject, big domain umbrella under which you study everything about birds. Yes.
Okay. So, what
Yeah.
inspired you to study barn swallows in particular?
Yes. Sorry, your voice broke.
Okay. So, I was saying, what inspired you to study barn swallows?
Okay, so it's an interesting story. So I started at Wildlife Institute of India working on Amur falcons, and then I got a chance to hear about this very unique bird. I would say unique because the way it behaves is very unique than any other wild bird that we see around us. So I heard it from my supervisor for the first time, my PhD supervisor, Dr. Suresh Kumar, who also works at the Wildlife Institute of India, and he mentioned
Okay.
to me about this bird called barn swallow, and I read about it. I explored all the literature, and surprisingly the bird is studied extensively everywhere across the globe except India. So India is like a big gap in the ecology of this bird from across the world, and we have like different sorts of studies on barn swallows. They are ideal subject to understand climate change, even ecology, as you
Okay.
mentioned,
Okay.
and other sorts of stuff. And then I
So,
first time visited the nearby site where I actually had the privilege to see barn swallows in their natural world where they were nesting, and that
yeah,
inspired me to take up on this work and start on barn swallows. Yeah.
fan, fascinating. So, when you say that they're unique birds, what is that unique ability that differentiates barn swallow to, let's say, an Amur falcons that you studied last, or any
Okay.
other bird for that matter?
Yeah, so I think I would not compare them with Amur falcons now. That we
Hmm.
can discuss later. But let's say
Yeah.
how they are different from house sparrows, maybe. So barn
Yeah.
swallows, if you look around, they are considered as a common bird, commonly occurring
Yeah.
bird, which are there everywhere in the world, and they are so common that we don't know anything about them, especially in India. And
Okay.
if you say house sparrows, again, they are common. We are seeing the decline in the urban
Yeah.
areas, but they're generally common. And people have this relationship, because they know about sparrows. They know that there is a chidia around their houses and
Yeah.
around. But what is different with barn swallows is barn swallows nest inside the properties of the people, especially in the Himalayan region,
Okay.
especially in the Indian Himalayan region or the Himalayas.
Yeah.
And there they share unique relationship. They have strong association with humans. It's not just in India, but also across the world, across any other country in the northern hemisphere. And that is what
Yeah.
I'm going to take you through my presentation, and I'll
Yeah.
be telling
So
more on
let
that.
so without further ado, let's start with your presentation. Tell us
Yeah.
more about this fascinating bird.
Yes. So let me start with first telling you about migratory birds. right? So
Yeah.
migratory birds are those birds which move from one area to another in search of different habitat, in search of good weather conditions, in search of food. So they need uh, food and home basically. So they move around to nest, to find a place to nest, and also to find good resources which will enable them to survive in different conditions, and to avoid certain harsh conditions they move elsewhere. So this is all about migration. And because they
Okay.
migrate countries from countries across the hemisphere, they actually connect our world. So birds, they don't know the geographic boundaries or any the administrative boundaries. They are away from that, and they're out to fly, and that's how they
Yeah.
connect our world, and they connect us with nature. And that's how I the one migratory bird that we are going to talk today is barn swallows, or if you say the scientific name of barn swallows is called Hirundo rustica. I'm not going in that, but the meaning of Hirundo rustica is the bird of the country. So they are there in the country lands from across the world, in the European region or North America. They nest everywhere in that. And specifically, if you look at the word barn, that means the birds which nest in barns. So you see
Yeah.
barns where people usually keep their cattle and uh, uh, yeah, certain items
Yeah.
outside their houses or outside their residential places. Those are called barn. And from then there only the bird is called barn swallow. And earlier
Yeah.
it was called house swallow, but now they have moved the name to barn swallow. And if you
Yeah.
look around, if you Google around about barn swallows in popular culture, or how people perceive them, so you would find, like, I found this unique quote that one hardly knows what quality to admire most in the barn swallows, because all the associations of life at the old farm come thronging, because these birds come back to these barns in spring. So they are seeing
Yeah.
as they are observed as the indicator of changing weather patterns. So the
Okay.
people welcome them with happiness because they bring about spring season, or they bring about summer. So it's lively everywhere. So that's how we see
Yeah.
barn swallows. And if you also Google barn swallow tattoos, you will see barn swallows are very favorite among tattoo lovers. So people have swallows on their as the tattoos, because they reflect the symbol of happiness, symbol of spring, and changes of season. So let me take you
And they
more on
look
the,
pretty beautiful as well.
yeah,
They're
they
very
do.
good looking birds.
Yes. So if you look at the distribution of the barn swallows here, this global map, you see the colored region is indicating that they are everywhere. But if you see the orange area of it, that denotes where the birds build their nest. So these are the regions in the northern hemisphere where the birds build the nest or have the breeding season, we say, nesting season or breeding season. And they are there only for certain duration, only for the summer months, when the weather is pleasant, when they have enough food resources. And these birds are insectivorous birds, so they feed on insects, and in summer we have more insects than winters, right? So in summer they stay throughout this northern hemispheric belt, and as the season progresses, as the region gets cold harsh winters, all the birds move down. So they take these long migrations. North America birds go to South America, European birds go to Africa, and in India also birds go down to South India and Africa. So this is how the barn swallows are distributed. And let me take you to this interesting piece of thing, where people, as I was explaining, that people have these unique associations with barn swallows. And so if you go to Mexico, they are called golondrina, which means harbinger of summer. And if you go
Okay.
to Greece, they again are symbolizes as a celebration of spring. So return of a swallow means there is a term helidonismata, which means celebration of spring. And if you go to Egypt, they are referred as sun god. And if you go to Israel, they again are harbinger of autumn. Russia, they're just simply called the god bird. And then if you go to China, they are again messenger of spring, happiness, and good fortune. And if you come to Japan, similar, good luck, fidelity, and fidelity in marriage and fertility. So all these things, or like barn swallows are there everywhere, but irrespective of cultures, irrespective of people's origin, all of them see them as symbol of prosperity or symbol of happiness. So,
yeah,
but one thing that is missing here, if you look, nobody knows what is happening in India, how people of India are perceiving these birds, right? So let's come to the Indian part, and we'll know,
absolutely.
like, amidst all this global world, what is secretly happening in the Indian hills. And barn swallows in India, they only breed in the Indian Himalayan region. So this arc that you see, they need certain kind of weather. So they only breed from 1000 to 2000-meter elevations, because they need that particular weather, they need those climatic conditions to breed, and where they build nest. So every summer they come to these hills and they build their mud nest. So they are mud nesters, they collect wet mud and build their cup shaped nest that we'll see in more slides. But throughout this arc, barn swallows occur, and here I went and explored and tried to gather stories of people and how do they perceive on barn swallows. So if you see, start from Kashmir, we have different cultures, different beliefs, like people having different beliefs, different religions. If you go to Kashmir, then if you come to Uttarakhand, you come to Bengal, and if you come to Manipur, right? And what actually unites them, they are very geographically apart. 2500-kilometer long Himalayan arc, they are geographically apart. Some of them living in remote villages, they don't even know where Manipur is, or where, Sikkim is, they don't even know that. But what
Yeah.
connects them, without even their having their knowledge, what connects them is the barn swallow. And that is what my presentation is about: barn swallows and humans of Himalaya. And this is my favorite picture of this lady who was actually telling me, see, these birds are friendly, they are our friends, they stay here every summer, and they know me, they know my face, and so I can touch them. She was showing me that she is very much friendly with them. So take
So
now taking
that's not very common with other birds, right? These
that's not
birds
very
do not
common with
cooperate
other
with
birds.
Yeah,
Yeah, and even I won't suggest us going and touching them, because it's like kind of disturbing them. But that lady she was actually very familiar with the birds, and birds are nesting in her house, in her shop. So they knew this is like a safe space. But if I do the same, they would be disturbed. So anyway, so this is how I come to this topic. Today's topic is looking for a home within a home. I wrote looking for a home within a home because this is how the birds are nesting in the Himalaya. They are not nesting in barns, so we cannot call them barn swallow. So that's why they are coming every summer to look for a home, to look for a safe place to just nest, to raise their family, and just go back and come back again with the hope that they will find their nest again. So these
beautiful.
are the sites, as I was telling you, from Kashmir, Uttarakhand, and Manipur, and North Bengal. And here I went on and surveyed and spoke to many people on their perception, on how do they believe on barn swallows, and how many years they were actually seeing these nests. So the first curiosity that occurred to me is, barn swallows are surely nesting in their houses or in their shops, but when did they actually start to observe the nest? Because if you read on barn swallows, they were not uh, they did not used to nest inside shops or inside houses, because they came much before the humans came into the picture, right? Evolutionary scale. So barn swallows used to nest in caves
Okay.
like many other birds, but slowly, as the humans started to develop settlements, as they came out and started building different buildings, barn swallows became so familiarized with humans that they found that there is a safe opportunity to build the nest inside these places rather than building outside, because they have a threat of getting predation by large birds or by any other animal or snake. So they found it is very much safe if we come inside the houses and people are not bothered by them. So that's how the evolution of them getting inside the property started on, and they became the birds that we know today. So what is happening in the Himalaya is very interesting and unique. So if you look at this picture, this is from a vegetable shop in Mallital in Nainital area where I used to go
Okay.
every day. And this uncle, he was very curious. He's actually very good in birds. So he used to talk to me about Salim Ali and how the birds are in decline, how he's looking at crows differently and all. So what unique that you see in this picture is this shop is a very highly visited shop. So every time I go, I have to wait there for 10 minutes because there are so many people around because they're buying things and all. So I have to wait for them to just slowly go, and then I can look at the bird and look at the nest and see how the nest status is. And this is how the birds have adopted. So if you see at the top near the bulb area, there is a nest, and the adult barn swallow is there with three of her chicks. So chicks are also there. So they don't budge about the rush of the shop. They just come and go and do their business. So it's like you are standing there and barn swallows in the full flight are flying above your head, and if you are not like me, you won't even notice. It's like that. But because they're so fast flyers, and because of me only, people were actually starting to notice, oh, there is a nest here. And so they occur from these shops to the houses with access. So some kind
Okay.
people in the Himalayan region have made their houses modernized, but they have also kept some windows open because they know their birds are gonna come in. So this is how it works. So birds stay inside the house throughout the day, but when it is a nesting season, they would go out, get the food for the babies or the chicks, like insects, and then go back and come again. So it's like a very busy schedule during the nesting season. So this adult bird, which is sitting just above the Sikkim Himalayan region on the light, and this is just one adult. But in this house, there were about eight birds, including the chicks. And this couch that you
I see.
see where the guitar is lying, it was full of barn swallow poop. And the people were very tolerant.
So
So for them,
yeah,
it's
so so
yeah.
why is that, like, Himalayan people, why do they welcome these birds? Is there something that's related to their tradition, or it's being passed upon generations? Why
Yeah,
is this phenomenon happening? Because I don't think in a city like Delhi,
true,
people
true.
would allow birds to come inside their
Yeah.
houses.
So that's a very brilliant question, because that's why so you, in the beginning, you asked me why barn swallows. This is why barn swallows, because when I explored all these behaviors and spoke with people and understand their perception on these birds, I found out they're very kind, so what they believe is the bird nesting in their house is a sign of good symbol. So some people believe it as a prosperity sign, or some see it as good luck, and some see it's just there. Some people believe it's just a home of a bird which we should not disturb. And again, it is passed on generation and generations. So the elder people have spoken to them about the importance of these birds, and that is how people are still welcoming towards these birds. And if you so as I was saying, houses with access, so not all houses have these access so that birds can go in and build their nest. And so there are only those houses where older people still have the influence of telling younger generations the importance of these birds. And that is
Hmm.
why in my study sites, especially in Uttarakhand, most of the nests were not in houses, they were in shops. Because in
Okay.
shops are going to be open throughout the day, and the birds can freely move and in and out, right? So, and interestingly, by the time it gets dark, people know that their birds are going to come back. So if I ask, see, how do you know the birds are coming back at this time? And they would tell me, oh no, they would come around 6 or 6:30, and sometimes they don't come. So we have to wait. We wait for them, and once the bird come, then we drop our shutter down, and then we go to our houses. So this is
Hmm.
like,
So
yeah,
yeah, it has become a part of the bird has
their
become
life.
part of a family.
Yes, they're very much of their life, and they every year they wait for these birds to come to back to their shop. And if they don't, for some reason, they get really sad and like they question me why this year they have not come. So anyway, let's move ahead.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I will start with the story of Kashmir, how the people of Kashmir perceive this bird. So like I in the beginning I told you how barn swallows have different names in different countries. So if you go to
Yeah.
Kashmir and you ask for katij, they will show you a barn swallow, because katij in Kashmir is barn swallow, and also ababil. Ababil is a Urdu word, but in Kashmir barn swallows are generally called katij. And I'm taking you to this small incident that while sampling, while looking for barn swallows with my supervisor, we ventured into this house. This is near Bular Lake in Kashmir, and I learned that in Kashmiri nest is owl. Okay, owl is like a house, right? So I asked them,
Okay.
"Yaha katij ka owl hai kya? Do you have a barn swallow nest in your house?" And to my
Yeah.
surprise, the person of the owner of this house, he took me to the. You see, the steps are there. He took me inside to the house. We all went and we saw this image, and this image that you see. So you can see
Yeah.
some 4 or 5 nests here, and one bird is also perched there. And this room had about 10 to 12 nests, and every nest was active. If I say active, it means it either had chicks or eggs, and everywhere birds were
Okay.
there. And you see the window opened at that building, so that open window
Yeah.
is what, from where the birds were accessing, going out and coming in. And what is more interesting here is the splash of poop on the walls. You see the white
Yes. Yes.
splashes
It's
on the wall.
pretty evident. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So the ladies of the houses, they were busy in storing the grains for the upcoming harsh winters of Kashmir. So they were all storing the grains in this room. And I just asked the owner of the house, "Ki, where do you stay? Because this room looks like here only barn swallows are staying because there is no space." So I asked him, "Where do you and your family, where do you all stay?" And he sweetly said, "कि ये मकान तो पहले हमारा ही था, this house was ours only, but slowly as the barn swallows kept on coming and coming, we eventually had to move out, and I just built one small room near to this house. You can see on the right side there is one another building. That's where he
Yeah.
and his family are staying." So he was
Okay.
so kind, and he was like, "Ki, this eventually became the house of the barn swallows, so we just left as it is, and this is now our storage house, because barn swallows are again insectivorous birds, so they are not going to feed on their grains, so they are very
Yeah.
comfortable in that. Yeah. So this was one
So
incident of
will that in some sense help the storage with crops if they are storing some grains or anything? They will eat out the insects.
Oh, not really. So
Okay.
it's just that it's not harming them, and it's also not benefiting them, because barn swallows
Okay.
are aerial insectivores. If I say aerial insectivore, that means they're catching insects from air. They are not
Okay.
coming down on the floor and picking insects. So that's very rare
Understood.
occasion. Yeah. So, from one end of the Himalaya, before I tell you about Uttarakhand, I'll take you to the another side, to the northeast
Yeah.
hills of Manipur. So, again, here something different is happening. So, across the Himalayan arc, we see the birds are migratory. But in Manipur, in Imphal, these birds are resident. So something
Okay.
unique is happening. These birds don't migrate there. And to my surprise, and also to like, I was very excited for that, because I heard that the bird is called Sambrang in Imphal. In Meitei language, barn swallow is called
Okay.
Sambrang. And if you go there, if you go in Imphal, if you go to small villages also, and if you are asking even the kids, "Do you know about Sambrang?" and they will show you. It is that much prevalent in their cultures that they are very much aware of this bird. So this is one of the house in a village in Imphal district of Manipur, where the birds were just as I told you in Kashmir, the birds are nesting inside the house. And I was looking for a person who can tell me the meaning of Sambrang, and eventually I found one, a school teacher, and he told me Sambrang is a mixture of two words. It means a bird that shows you the direction, right direction to build your own house. So if the bird is building a nest, you should look at that direction and you should face your house in that direction. So that's how
Okay.
they see this bird. And See, the Kashmir and Manipur are distances apart, but again, the
Yeah,
thing
but
that
they're
is
connected
uniting
by
them,
this bird. Yeah.
and what is uniting them is these painted walls and tolerance. So in this house
Yeah.
again, in many of the houses in Imphal, barn swallows, it's completely occupied one whole room, and the members of this family, they are staying in the rest of the rooms. So this one room is kept only for the barn swallows, because you can see the paint splashes and it's just like modern art somebody has done. And if I ask them, how are you so tolerated, they just say they've been nesting here for generations. This is not like our home, this is their home as well as it is ours. So it's just like that, it's just that tolerance. And people there in Manipur also believe that these birds are a sign of Lakshmi or a good prosperity and luck. So that's how they
Okay.
are also revered in Imphal specifically. And again, an interesting story that while visiting many villages, I just chanced upon this house and I went and I just was asking about Sambrang, and the lady of the house told me, "You wait here. Let me call my grandfather." I was like, "Okay." Then she called him, and he showed me this series of books. You see that books are lying there.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
actually he's a writer. He writes for local newspaper also, and there was a documentary. So he told me that in winters, lot many barn swallows used to come to his house, and in the veranda of his house, they used to like sleep in lines in the night because it is too cold. So
Okay.
they all stayed together, and they used to do that for many many years. And in this picture that he's giving me, the barn swallows are there on the top. So and then he gave me his blessing, and he told me that, and during that season our ritual was every morning we used to wipe the floor because it was full of barn swallow poop, because the swallows are
Yeah.
there on the wire.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
sadly what he told me that this phenomena he does not see now. This has completely changed. She does not see even a single bird coming in winter and coming in winter and resting here. So according to him, the birds are declining specifically in that part of the region. So we need more research
Okay.
to actually say that the birds are declining or not.
So,
So
just to clarify this, do we not have any sort of database, any central database, or any research, anything that tells us if the birds are declining, if the birds are growing, or what
yeah,
is their status overall?
right. Yes. So in the starting that I mentioned that the birds are very common, right? So if I, it's a general belief that the common birds are in common, in plenty. Okay. So whether they are in decline or whether they are doing good, we hardly know. And specifically from India, we don't know at all. So my research on barn swallow is the first research on barn swallow from the Indian region. But if I look at barn swallows population trends from outside, from European countries or from North America and Canada, where they are breeding, those people are reporting 60% to 90% of decline in the populations because they have the database of over 4 decades and they can compare.
So that this is an alarming number. So should lack of data, does that make your research much harder because you have
Yes.
to do everything from scratch?
Yes, so lack of
How
data
difficult is
does make
it?
it, yeah, does make it hard because you don't know the numbers. So my that's why I don't say that my research is to conserve barn swallow. It is to know their ecology first, because unless you know the ecology of a bird or ecology of an animal or a species, you cannot conserve them, right? The conservation part comes later. So that's why the my focus is to more focus on these common birds and find out what is happening to their populations like barn swallows, and some of my colleagues are working on house sparrows. So it is more important to work on common birds, and because they are the good indicators to actually say that there are changes that is happening at landscape level, or there are climatic changes that is happening and affecting species, and see if changes like climate change and habitat modifications are impacting common birds, then they must be impacting the rare or threatened birds, correct? So common birds become that one good subject to study all these things. And that's why see my research would become a baseline for future studies to undertake to carry out long term studies on such common birds. So
Yeah, good luck to
yeah,
you. You're doing
yes.
great work, like building upon everything from scratch in absence of any credible data.
Yes. So yeah. So yeah. So I think we, because of the people of the Himalayan region only, we can collect this data. And yeah, again, coming back to the central Himalayan region, right? This is all connected. I
Yes.
spoke about Kashmir, I spoke about Manipur, and there is this big gap. So Himachal
Okay.
Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Bengal and Sikkim, there people refer to barn swallows again with different names. So in Himachal they call Ramchidi, again because
Okay.
people consider them as god or something. But in Uttarakhand they're called Dev Chidiya because they nest in Dev Bhumi, Uttarakhand. That's a Dev
Okay.
Chidiya, or Dhan Chidiya, as simply as Dhan Chidiya. So it's a sign of good luck or prosperity. And if you go to East Uttarakhand and Nepal region and then North Bengal, they call Gotai or Gotali, bird that nest in the houses. So these are the snippets of how barn swallows are there everywhere in the Himalayan region. And now I'll just focus on the barn swallow stories that I gathered from Uttarakhand because that was my key study site. So here, people just reported that the swallows are nesting for over 100 years. There are different categories, but they are there for more than 100 years in many of the areas, specifically in the areas where people are living from the areas where the settlements are very old. So people have that knowledge that barn swallows are there before, even before 100
Okay.
years, and mostly nest in shops and houses. I did not find any natural nesting site. If I say natural, that means in cave or in a rock crevasse. Not there, it's only in
So
shops.
is this the same situation in Europe or any other continent, or is
Yeah.
this uniquely Indian?
So this is okay. I would say in Europe and North America, these birds are mostly nesting in barns, as I mentioned, right, in the countryside areas. If you go to Japan, if you go to China, these birds are also nesting outside the stores. Or there was a video circulating, I remember, in a railway station in Japan, they are nesting in a pillar there. So they're just
Okay.
trying to find whatever space is available for them to nest. But here in India, they are nesting mostly in shops and houses in the Himalayan region, and also with preference to old infrastructure, which is very much
Okay.
evident because new infrastructure means people are getting less tolerant and they will not allow the birds to come in and nest inside. So,
Yeah.
and again, I will take you to this story. So, this is a house in Tari Khet near Rani Khet area in Almora, East Uttarakhand, and I was looking at barn swallows in that market, specifically in the shops, and that shopkeeper he told me, "Come to my home. We have even more nest of barn swallows." And that home was just above his shop. I said, "Okay." So I went in and I saw one nest in the corridor in the stairs, and then he took me to this room. This was his living room, and in this picture you can see there are two nests that are visible. On the other wall, you could see one more nest, and in the other wall, you could see one more nest at the back. And there he was showing me interestingly, ki, look at this wind chime. So in the wind chime, it was full of barn swallow poop. So he was telling
Okay.
me, see, the bird comes. The favorite spot of it is to just sit on this wind chime and spend time there. And as he was telling me, I was just taking the photos. As he was telling me, to our surprise, the bird just arrived there. And these people were so happy to see it because this is what they were telling me. And if
Yeah.
I zoom in the picture, you can see the bird is sitting there, and evidently it is pooping on this wind chime. So interestingly, in Uttarakhand, when I was surveying, one of the lady told, not one lady actually, many people told me. So if I am serving in a village or in a town, I would ask them, so where else do you see barn swallows nesting? Do they nest everywhere in this village or what? So they said, no, 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 they don't nest everywhere. So it's not like they're nesting in our shop. You will go to next shop and you will find the nest there also. So they say कि you can only find their nest in houses जहाँ पे लोगों के दिल अच्छे हैं. So they are very said where the
Okay.
people are kind, there only you will see the barn swallows are nesting. They will not nest everywhere. They have preference for good people. So true to
That's
their belief, it is because the people are kind enough. to welcome the
Yeah.
swallows and to let them nest in their houses and shops. So one interesting aspect that I wanted to know from them is that if the birds are building this mud nest, it usually takes them a week to build the nest, to collect the mud, wet. So they search for wet mud available near the nesting area. And both males and females, both the birds, together they build the nest, this cup shaped mud
Okay.
nest, for a week. So my question was, so if the birds have left, so they are there for the summer period, and as the monsoon comes in July, the birds leave. So when the birds leave, what you do with the nest? Do you remove it? Because in the next season the birds will arrive again, and they will have to start from the scratch. If the base is already there, they will just have to do some refurbishing and it will be done, and their time will be saved, energy will be saved,
Yeah.
and they can invest more energy and more time in rearing the chicks, right?
Yeah.
So they said ki we don't destroy the nest. Even like 93% of the people that I spoke to, I interviewed about 400 people, and 93% of them told me that they do not remove the nest. They keep the nest intact. And in this picture, and this picture also where the uncle is showing me the nest, and the picture next to it, you can see people are so kind and so thoughtful that they know that birds poop. Okay, so if the chicks are there on the nest, they will turn around and poop down, and it will make their shop dirty. And especially if some people are coming to get some things and all, it will be
Yeah.
annoying. So they make
Yeah.
this platform under the nest. So all the poop goes on that platform and not on the floor. So birds are saved and they are also saved. And for birds, uh, so there are chances when chicks also fall out of the nest. So they said ki we make this platform so that even chicks don't fall off the nest. So this is how they think. So you can see in this next, in the right picture, the person told me the birds are not coming for 2 years, but I have made these platforms for them. So I hope they come in the next season. So they were that hopeful.
This is such an incredible thing that people are being so thoughtful about birds.
Yes.
In today's day and age, people don't care about another human being, let alone.
Yeah. So you were asking me like city people will not do that. The same thing I told them. So I come from Delhi, and I told them ki I don't see any person in Delhi who would do such things for birds, and specifically if the bird is making their place dirty and all. But they are fine with it. So yeah, and if they leave the nest intact, it is indeed used by the birds. So it is a good thing that these people, they don't destroy the nest, because 82% people said that swallows do come back to the same nest and they raise their young in the same nest, and you can see some 5 chicks on this nest. And so, one question, because the people are observing these birds nesting in their houses. So, one question I wanted to ask them, do they see any nesting failure? And if they do see nesting failure, what could be the possible reasons? So, one reason that came out of nowhere was the house
So,
sparrow disturbance.
so sorry to disturb you. Like, what is nesting failure?
So okay, so nesting failure is like if the bird is laying its eggs, okay. So if it lays 5 eggs and the chicks that hatch from them is only three, say three or not five, and the chicks that eventually fly are two. So that means the failure has happened. The nest is not successful completely. Okay,
Okay.
so if the bird has laid 5 eggs and all the 5 chicks are fledged or fly off, so that means the nesting was a success. But if there was
Okay.
any mishappening happened during the nesting time, that means there was a failure. The bird could not uh, reproduce better. So the
Yeah.
reason was house sparrow disturbance. 30% people said there is a disturbance from house sparrows, and that is what I also observed during my study. So it's like, as I was telling you, if the people stop giving the space inside their properties, the swallows are forced to go out and nest in corridors. So once they
Okay.
nest in corridors or outside the house, they are prone to compete with other species. So in the village, house sparrow is also there. There is also another swallow called red-rumped swallow, which is also mentioned here. And all of them compete with each other for the nesting space, because the nest space is limited. There are
mm,
not enough nesting space, and house sparrows are very dominant. So I have seen that in this picture you can see a house sparrow is coming out of a barn swallow nest. So it has completely taken over the nest. The nesting material of house sparrow is also there, and usually it throws away the eggs. It kills, house sparrows also kills the chicks of barn swallows. So it's a strong competition is happening, and the other
okay.
reasons are the chicks falling out of the nest. That's why people put those platforms also to keep the chicks protected. And one more emerging thing was ceiling fans. So in the
Okay.
Himalayas, even though we believe that it's a colder region, but people are now moving to install the fans because it's getting warmer and warmer year by year. So barn swallows are, because they are fast flyers, they usually get hit by the fans and eventually leads to death or injury, and that also results
Okay.
in the failure. So these were the questions. So but what was more what do you say what do I say what was more interesting to me was to know, because my research overlapped with the lockdown in India, COVID lockdown
Okay.
of year 2020 and 2021. So barn swallows in the Himalayas are from March till July, and the same period was the lockdown. So 2 years of field work was not done because I could not go there, and also the swallows are nesting in the shops, and shops were closed. Okay, so
Yeah.
when I restarted my work in 2022, the first question that I wanted to ask them, I was very restless. I just wanted to ask them, if your shop was closed, where did the swallows go? How did they nest?
Yeah.
And how much failure did you observe, right? So, yeah, as I was telling you about the installation of fans. So
Yeah.
yeah, lockdown story I will go again, but let me complete this fans. So as I was telling you, the climate is getting more warmer. So the increase of
Yeah.
swallows getting hit by the fan is also increasing. The risk is increasing, and therefore people are now shifting to table fans. So most of the people told
Okay.
me they don't use ceiling fans. They have just installed table fans for the birds, because the birds are getting hit by the fan. And yeah, so this gentleman that I found in Askot in Pithoragarh district of Uttarakhand, he told me it
Hmm.
gets really hot these days in Askot, and we really have to install the ceiling fan. But I saw that there were some incidents where the barn swallows were getting hit by the fan, especially when the chicks, when the baby birds, they make their first flight, they do it inside the shop, inside the building. They
Okay.
don't directly go out because they're scared. So they make their first bouts of flights inside the property. And during that
Hmm.
period, the chances of getting hit by the fan is much more, much more prevalent. So that is why the threat is there. And that's why this person was telling me he's installed table fan. And he was a very kind person. So yeah, so coming back to the lockdown story, so I asked what
Yeah.
happened if there were no, if the shops were not open, then what happened? So 43% people said yes, the nesting failed. Most of them told me that we were hit by the policemen because we wanted to
Okay.
open the shutter of our shops a little bit so that the birds can go in and out. In order to save the
Okay.
birds, they were getting hit by the policemen. So but it 43% said key nesting failed. And one more impact was that the birds stopped coming next year, because the lockdown
Yeah.
was for 2 consecutive years, and to birds it was a disturbance. They saw that the nesting space is not there anymore,
It
so they
was no
stopped.
longer there. Yeah.
Yes, so they stopped coming there. However, 56% said that there was no impact. And I asked
Okay.
how? Either the birds will be nesting in the house, that's why there was no impact, or what else? So they told me they made alternative entrances. So, so if
Oh.
you look at this picture, this person has cut a small space, small cut in his shutter. So just for the bird to go inside and do about its business. So this was about
But
15% of
it's
people had done.
unbelievably incredible that people are putting so much effort for the bird to come to
Yes,
nest to do.
yeah. So people told me this was like 15% of the people had done the same thing, that they cut their shutters for the birds, and some people made alternative. So they used to leave the shutter little bit. Otherwise, some people had little opening above their shutters from birds could go. Some people left the back door open so the birds could nest. Some birds made some people made small ventilation in their houses or shops so the birds can move in and out. So these were all the kind efforts that people of the Himalaya had done for during the lockdown period, because they just wanted their birds to continue nesting. And that's what was pretty amazing, and I think it's really unique in the Indian Himalayan region. You will not see it anywhere else.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating to know about this.
Yeah. So now, yes, I did find some amazing people, and but when you gauge the mindset and when you meet the people from everywhere, so slowly there are some emerging threats, right? So because now I have known that birds are totally dependent on humans, houses, and shops. They don't have anywhere else to go and build their nest. That's why the threats become even more pronounced. So if people have these changes in their mindset, especially the generational gaps. If the younger
Yeah.
generation are moving out of the hills to look for jobs and other things, they will not be very much kind towards the birds nesting, right? So most of the places, even in Kashmir, people were telling me the modernization is a problem. Most of the houses in Kashmir, the older houses used to have bigger ventilated windows where the birds could move out and in. But now, because of the modern infrastructure, people have changed their houses structures. So in Kashmir, also people were saying that barn swallows are going low in numbers. In Uttarakhand, same thing is happening because of high tourist pressure. The shops are constantly getting modified. People are installing false ceilings, and false ceilings do not have the hold for the birds to put the mud nest on it, right? So the
Mhm.
false ceilings is a problem. And then people are installing glass doors because they want their shop to look attractive and more
Yeah.
catchy for the tourist, and that is again is restricting the swallows access to their shops. So this is one
So
thing that can.
how will this affect the barn swallow population, and also won't this be directly impacting the ecological balance of that area?
Yeah, true. So that's what I tell people. So some of the curious mind would ask me, "Oh, you have come so far." So if I go to a remote village, they're like, "You have come so far for this small bird. What do you get in it?" So people are very innocent. So they think that there is some personal benefit of me that I'm coming to look out for this bird. So I tell them, "So this bird is very important for you. So if you are doing your agriculture here, or if you have your farms here, these birds are insectivores and they are killing the pests of your farms. They are picking those pests and eating those pests, and that is how they're protecting your farms. And if you see the decline in bird population, in any bird population, it's not just during the nesting period. They are here in the Himalayas in nesting period from in summer months, right? So when they move down, when they go for spend their winters in a warmer area like South India, which is warmer than Himalayas in winter months, like North Indian winter months. So they are in huge numbers. They are congregating together, like thousands and thousands of them. And if you just make them disappear, if those birds are not there any longer, the insects of those regions will just bloom, correct? So with those
Mhm.
changes, the
That
cascading
will
effect will
that
happen to
will
these.
have, yeah, direct impact on people's livelihood,
Yes.
agriculture, ecology in
Yeah.
general.
True. So that is how, even if I say we need to study avian ecology, so just me studying it at the breeding season is not enough. We also have to look for their wintering ecology, how they are doing in southern India or South Africa, how these birds are doing. And I'll come to that later. So, yeah. So, as I was talking about outward migration, so the younger generation are coming out of the hills. So, during my surveys, I ventured into empty villages where the houses are abandoned, where the farms are abandoned. And if that is
Okay.
not there, birds are not going to come and nest in. So, interestingly, barn swallows are only nesting in where people are occupying the house.
Okay.
And even if a abandoned building is there, their birds are not nesting there. And so I thought about it, and then I thought it's because the presence of people is actually protecting them, because in the absence of people, the predators from outside can come in and pick the birds and get the eggs. And have become
Yes.
a threat to the birds. And that is why they are choosing to stay near the populated areas where people are there. And of course, changing climate is a threat, because as we see that climate is changing slowly, the migration timings will change, because these birds or any other migratory bird, they sense the changes in the season. So that's how they plan their migration. That's how they plan their arrival in the breeding season. And if there is any change in the climate, and if there is any change in the occurrence of insects, it's again going to play a big role in the how the population will do and how it will affect them. And specifically in the case of humans, changing climate would lead them to do some other infrastructure modifications, and it will again cause
Yes.
nesting limitations. Right? So, but yet there is a hope to have a home within a home. As you see, this beautiful two adults and one small baby of barn swallow is there. There is hope to have
Yes.
a home within a home, because all of these people everywhere, from Kashmir, from Uttarakhand, from North Bengal and Manipur, they are there to protect their birds, to keep their birds stay safe in their region. And that's how I see there is still hope. And if we continue to, at least just go every season, meet them, just
Yeah.
acknowledge them for their efforts. So
Yes.
this can be continued, and the birds will be there. And of course, during
So,
my PhD,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. You continue. I'll ask later.
Okay. So during the PhD work, I also had to capture these birds. So it's not just looking at the birds and talking about people, talking on with people. It's also capturing these birds, because I am also looking at how these birds are different from one another. So if I
Yeah.
see birds of Kashmir, how they are different from birds of Uttarakhand, barn swallows specifically, there are
Okay.
subtle differences in these populations. And what is causing these population differences? That's more ecological questions that I'm asking. And one more thing is whether these birds come back to the same nest every year or not. That is also
Hmm.
one question which is very interesting, because everywhere I go, people tell me, "Oh, these birds come every year to our nest." And I say, "Do you think that these birds are same birds?" They're like, "Yeah, they are same birds. Otherwise, how would they know that their nest is in our second room in our house if they don't know the bird, right?" So they say ki they remember where their nest is. So that's how. So we started this ringing effort where we captured these birds from all along the Himalaya and put small rings on them. So these
Okay.
rings are metal rings and color rings. So metal rings are just like small rings that we put on the tarsus, we say, the thigh, tarsus bone of the bird in the leg side. And metal has a code to it. Metal ring has engraved code to it. So it's like a unique
Okay.
ID for each bird. And the other ring, I
Okay.
have put a color ring just for the people to see that this bird is coming back. So coloring is more visible for birds, for people to see.
Okay.
And so after ringing, we release. So I can show that video where the birds were released from a shop. So these are small kids in Manipur. So we ring the bird and we release, and they were very happy to see how. So they're seeing the birds nesting in their house many many times, but this is for the first time they could see, oh, the birds are special. And all of our ringing effort was done in the night, because night is the best time to catch these birds. Otherwise, you can imagine the shops are very busy throughout the day, and people have their own jobs, and we cannot go with nets and catching birds in the daytime. So we had to
Yeah.
wait for the night, for everything is shut down. People were so kind to wait for us before closing their shop. I had to remind them, please don't go, we are coming." So till 1 in the morning, there was time when we did the ringing till 7 in the morning, because it was continuation, it was continuing effort. We used police stations for ringing the birds. So in Missouri, we were catching some birds, and the one policeman was asking us, "Oh, what are you doing in the night?" So it's like, "We are catching these birds. This is our research." It's like, "Okay, one nest is there in the station. Also, come there and do the ringing there also." So we used the ringing. So we needed some space with the light. So we actually sat there and did all of our processing there. So this is how people are helping. And of course, as I was telling you, we wanted to know whether the birds are coming back or not. So this is was indeed a homecoming. So next year, birds, you can see the rings on their legs. So birds actually
Okay.
came back to the same nest, to the same area, and people were so happy to see that their birds are coming back. And this was like a success to this. And the whole effort was like involved a lot of people. There are so many people which I am going to mention in my thesis, because there are a list
Yeah.
of different people from everywhere, but these are very important people who helped me a lot in carrying out the field work. And going ahead, we what we are also doing now is we are tagging these birds with small tags to know where do they go in winters. So they are not
Okay.
here throughout
So
the year.
it's kind
So
of a
we
GPS tag you're talking about.
yeah, so the problem is these birds are very small, so they are only 15 grams. So we
Okay.
cannot put a tag which is heavy than more than 3 grams of their body weight. And GPS tags are usually heavy. So for these birds, a very small kind of a tag comes, which is called a geolocator tag. So what it does
Okay.
is it captures the sunlight. So the tag is on the back of the bird. It captures the sunlight, and it then tells us where the bird is going to be, latitude and longitude. So what we have to do is this year we are going go back to the nesting site, get those tags back from the birds, and see where the birds had actually gone. So this is not a active data. We will get the data
Okay.
only when the birds come back to the nest. That's why.
Okay.
So we have tagged about 15 birds in a village called Kempty near Masuri, and we just want to find more and more on the swallows of the Himalayas. So thank you. This was my talk about, and yeah,
Yeah,
you can
that
take the
was a fascinating talk. And now I have few questions of my own. Like,
yeah.
it's incredible that people are helping in conservation efforts. People welcome these birds because they revere, they
Mm,
believe these birds bring prosperity, luck, and whatnot.
right.
But the thing is, can just people, locals, be dependent on saving these birds, conserving these birds? Shouldn't there be a larger consensus or some government involvement to protect these birds? Because they, as you yourself said, that the number, uh, as people are reporting, the numbers are going down. So can people, locals, only sustain this going
Okay.
forward?
Okay, yeah. So going forward, I would cite the example that we see in Canada. So the populations are getting steeply declined, and governments are taking action. In Canada, the birds are protected under the Conservation Act. So even though the bird is common, but in Canada it is protected. Their nests are protected, and people are promoted to build an artificial nest outside their houses. So they put the wooden things in a cup shaped manner to enable the birds to come and nest in their house. So that is happening because people have data to say that these birds are in decline, right? So in my effort from the Himalayan region, what I want to do is take this research long term, build the data, what is happening to these birds, and help these local people to continue their effort. I said that we need to acknowledge them. We really need to acknowledge them, and we need to sustain that acknowledgement over the years, because the people are very kind. They are very simple. So right now their efforts is enabling the birds to nest. So even if I go in the next year, some people complain, oh, we will remove this nest because the birds make a lot of mess, they make a lot of poop. And I tell them, oh, they love you so much, that's why they come back every year, so you have to protect it. So that's how I talk to them. And of course the reach is limited. I can go only to select sites. I cannot go everywhere in the Himalayan region at the same time and tell people that they need to conserve the birds. So going forward, I want that we should be having more awareness campaigns with the local people, how they so we need to tell them what they are doing is very very important. It's not happening anywhere in the country, or to say anywhere in the globe, because it's just happening in the Himalayan region, where they are kind enough to have the homes of the barn swallows inside their home. So we need to make them aware, we need to acknowledge them. And also, over the years, if we see that indeed populations are in decline, that we need to involve like doing some artificial nesting sites for the birds to build their nest. But first, we need to build on the data. We need to actually see whether the birds are in decline or whether there is a pattern. So sometimes what happens, broad level, the decline is not there. But if you come to a
Okay.
local scale, if you come to a particular village, you see the decline is there because there are some local things that is happening. So that's how we need to broaden the level of the research, involve more people, and then yeah. So yeah, do a long term and
So what
landscape level
the
research.
session? Yeah, the session was fantastic. We got to know a lot about how good people are,
Yeah.
how kindness can go a long way. So
Yes.
the thing is, what do you want people watching this session to take away from this?
Okay. So what I would say is lot of us go to the hills of Uttarakhand in summer
Yeah.
because we want to escape from the heat of the plains, of the northern plains, and we go and we just do our touristy stuff and come back. What I want to for the people everywhere in India, just observe these birds. If you're going, I have seen many times that in restaurants tourists are coming and they're just going by their own business. But if they see me, like I am looking at the birds and collecting data, then they get curious. Oh, what are you looking at? So I want people to be more observant and to be more tolerant. So sometimes tourists complain that, oh, your birds are pooping around, and it's, so be tolerant and be kind enough, and also, yeah, be aware and start watching birds maybe. That will also be very interesting. So what I do is I also take help of this global database called eBird. It is developed by Cornell Lab. It's online, it's free, where birds from everywhere in India, bird watchers from everywhere in India, they report the sightings of a bird that they see
Okay.
somewhere. So I use those sightings of barn swallows to base my research in the Himalayan region because, as I said, nothing was there. So, due
Okay.
to the citizen science, we call it citizen science because the common people are doing the science stuff. They are reporting the
Yeah.
birds, right? So maybe more of you can go and start watching birds and start reporting it on eBird, and yeah, help the scientists do their work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the locals more.
Yes, acknowledge the
Yeah.
locals more.
Yeah. So it was fantastic. Great.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing such invaluable insights on
Thank you.
about barn swallows. It was
Thank you.
pleasure hosting you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
everyone
much.
for
Thank you
watching.
for giving this opportunity. Yeah. Thank you.